Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. It is the 14th of October, 2020. We are here live on Facebook. We have a regular panel. We have Kelly, our Qigong teacher. We have Travis, who's our spiritual teacher, musician, and what other qualities do you have, Travis? And I'm going to admit Caesar, okay? Just 1 second. Thank you.
Were you asking what my other qualities are?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I'm just a student. Just a happy disciple.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Eileen, who's going to help us stay coordinated, marching to her music, right? She's going to be the master of ceremonies. And Louise, our author, and Caesar, who also is a spiritual teacher, a Reiki healer. Good evening. Hello there, Caesar. So I wanted to, since we talked about nutrition, I wanted a quick update from you, Louise, since you actually took the nutrition that we were discussing to heart and actually started a cleanse, right? And it's been 9 days. I just want you to give a quick update and then I'll go into the topic we were discussing before on the last Facebook. Go ahead. Thank you.
So it's been really wonderful. It's basically a lot of raw foods, and actually it's all raw foods now that I think about it. And it's through the medical medium, and it has just been wonderful. I've had the recipes are delicious. I feel really super good. But the best part about it is I feel like I've been able to go even deeper in my stillness meditation. Like I feel like I've gotten into like a different like level or something. I don't know how to kind of explain it, but it's just cleared up so much. It's cleared up my head. I feel like a lot of release, a lot of tension has gone away. It's just been a really wonderful experience, and I would totally recommend it to anybody.
Thank you so much, Louise. And I think that was the whole reason we dedicated a whole hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes, how much ever all of us spoke on nutrition over and over again, is if people are saying, I need to intensify my presence practice, if we're feeling pain in our body, right? If you're in a what is split disease into dis-ease, we are not at ease in our body, then how are we going to experience the vibrational frequency, right? So a cleanse, maybe you give yourself a month, a week, 9 days, and see, does that help? Does that help you intensify your presence? Because that will also manifest abundance in your life. As you intensify presence, you get into alignment with inner beingness, you are in presence, and then things start happening, right? The law of attraction, conscious manifestation starts to work. And then you'll see when I think of something, it actually manifests itself right in reality. So this brings me back to the question that we left off with. Everyone touched base on it last time. Betty asked this question about, what was it, Eileen? Something about if I think of chicken soup or chicken and I say my body hates it, do the cells of my body actually respond to that thought? Right? I hate chicken, and then now I'm really hating when somebody brings chicken in front of me. I'm really not liking it. The body is not liking. So do the thoughts and the body cellular atoms follow what our thought is. So, Kelly, since you joined first, you get to go first. Thank you.
Fair enough. Nutrition is a very important aspect of my path and the work that I do. As most of you know, I tend to eat a lot of raw veggies. Being able to listen to the body is essential for actually walking your path consciously. Understanding how to nourish when the body, and to understand that it is not just food that you're putting in your mouth, but it is an actual mindfulness practice. Each time you eat, each time you are nourishing the body, you are supporting the body. As you support the body and figure out what fits and what works best for your body, you build a language of understanding, a language of feeling those points of reference and the needs of your body when you are balanced, integrated, aligned, as well as when you're not balanced and not integrating and not aligned. So having a baseline routine with your food in a way that really supports the processing that you need to do when you are integrating and healing and doing your inner work, you really need to pay attention to what you put in your body and to make it a mindful, conscious practice. Whenever I drink something, whenever I eat something, whenever I am breathing, and especially in my meditations or when I'm doing my Qigong practice or teaching class, I am constantly reminding myself. When I'm drinking water even, I will say to myself, I am light, I am light, I am light, or I am love, I am love, I am love. Because oftentimes we do things in a very mindless way because they are such huge, consistent, regular activities. And this is one of the ways to take a regular activity like drinking water and turn it into a mindfulness practice. Very, very easy. You drink the water, you go, I am light, I am light, I am light, as you drink the water. As you eat your celery, like I just was with my snack before we started. Whenever I'm eating anything, I'm also facilitating and supporting the process of ingesting and supporting my body through taking in food and water and liquids by being conscious of what my mind is doing, where I am putting my intention and the energy of my awareness while I am eating. I have been very, very nutrition conscious for a really, really, really long time. I gave myself toxic shock when I was a teenager through drinking too much at a party. And I spent many years having to recalibrate and rebalance and learn about all the things that supported and helped my body heal itself. So, and there are a lot of different types of detox diets out there, a lot of different ways of going about figuring out what works for your body. It's awesome to hear Louise's point of reference for her experience. Firsthand experience is always great. And you know, there are things that I do constantly. Like I eat very clean. I grew up eating very clean. I've had a couple moments in my life where I ate an awful lot of junk food, and the energetic effect of eating, you know, chips and pop and candy all the time really made my system incredibly sluggish. And if we can get into the energetics of it, the metaphysics of it, the cleaner you eat, the easier it is for your body to process and integrate and heal. So the cleaner you eat, the more you actually support your body. Just going to the straight ATP sequence of energy generation and use by the cells themselves. The cleaner you eat, the easier the cells have to transfer fluid and nutrients in and out. There's less garbage in the way. There's less dense energy, there's less dense foods or less processed foods, processed chemicalized or pharmaceuticalized ingredients for your body to try and identify and process. And when we eat processed foods, what happens is our body requires more minerals to digest them. So this is one of the really, really important things about eating cleanly, is that when you eat clean, you do not, your body is being nourished. It does not take anything from itself in order to process and digest processed foods. I'm going to say process here a few times, but it's that simple. It's you know, I spent 30 years doing policy work for government regulations, protecting habitat, waterways, and stuff like that. And it's the same kind of concept with writing policy, believe it or not. When you communicate clearly, everything is easily understood. When you eat cleanly, everything is easily assimilated, and there's no extra work for the body to do, so your body can actually grow and heal and become stronger. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. Louise, did you want to speak about how do you think that the cellular structure of our body responds to what, this is my favorite topic, limiting beliefs, right? So does it respond to the thoughts that we are thinking?
Yes, I believe it does. Because, you know, as I said earlier, before we got on here, I thought I was going to be hungry. You know, I was already making all these thoughts like I'm going to be hungry. I like food too much. It's raw food, not cooked, you know. And then I'm like, no, let me just try it. Like, stop the blah, 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 and just do it. And there's foods in there that I never have tried. There's things that I didn't really particularly care for before, like butternut squash. And now I was like, oh, these recipes are delicious. So it does have I do believe whatever we think, we do manifest in some way. And but along with kind of what Kelly was saying is, you know, there's things too, like I didn't realize that I was sluggish inside. And it's true. I just realized that as I started doing it, I just started feeling like just stuff was just falling off of, like I just didn't feel that like heaviness anymore. And just like happier. It just brought like a lot of balance. So it's just been everything that I thought it wouldn't be.
Thank you.
But our mind does have a lot of that.
It shows in your face too.
What was that?
It shows in your face too. It's glowing, radiant. Awesome.
Hey.
Thank you. Travis, did you want to speak about, does the body listen to?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A story comes to mind that I remember reading some years ago of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh when he was a teenager. I think he grew up in a Jainist family, and with the way that with the way he grew up, they wouldn't eat after sundown. And I remember him telling a story of when he went on, I don't know what it was, you know, maybe like a 3-day trek or something like that with a couple of friends when he was a teenager, to go and visit some temple or something, place they hadn't been. And they were traveling, and his friends, they weren't from the same religion. They would eat after dark. And he was going, shouldn't we stop and eat? Because it's, you know, it's getting later and later in the day. They're going, no, let's go further. We don't want to stop here yet. Let's go further along. So anyways, by the time they finally stop and set up camp for the night, the sun has gone down. But he probably hadn't eaten all day or eaten for hours and hours. And they were eating. And so he decided to eat. And he got wildly ill because in his mind, all his life, he had been trained that you can't eat after sundown. And so it was actually, he was making that point about how when you're so habituated in these mental modalities, that they can be pretty rigid. And so I don't know if years after that or how things went, if he ever ate after sundown or what, but that was the point that he was making. And so that's a story that comes to mind for me, where he had just been taught all his life that wasn't something that you do, that wasn't something that's okay. And I think because that idea was so deeply ingrained in him, his body rejected the food. And so that's the story that comes to mind for me, just that kind of illustrates how we can think that it's this way or that. When I was a teenager, I used to playfully say to myself, because it made sense to me in my own internal dialogue, if you think so, you're probably right. And so, and that's an acknowledgement of how that our experiential reality, I don't think that by and large, as individuals and collectively, we really have an understanding as to how fluid it is or isn't. And so there are kind of things that we're taught and things that we just unconsciously assume about how reality works. The material world, I guess, is what I'm referring to when I use the word reality. The material existence, the phenomenal existence, and so. But I think there's a very mysterious. It's a wonderful thing. I love to bring my attention to it. This very mysterious, I think utterly mysterious, quite likely, in that it will always be mysterious, kind of interplay between our imagination and how we see things and the images that we're able to conjure up in our mind's eye, and the relationship between that and what comes to be in the material world. It's a fascinating place to bring our attention to go, how does this work exactly? And I think that that we can play with it and challenge our limiting beliefs, and experiment and play around with it, and find what we like, because we're all so unique. So it's worth playing around with. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Travis. It's funny you should say that. So recently, like one of the recent posts of Medical Medium had grapefruit on it, right? So I looked at the Facebook post, and when I haven't had grapefruit in a long time, I need to put it in the grocery list. And it so happens in the evening, the mail comes in, and I've ordered Micro C from Vimergy, right? I look at the bottle, and in there on the face of the bottle, it says grapefruit extract. I was like blown away. I was like, wow. And I just smiled. I looked at the bottle and I just smiled. That in the morning I saw grapefruit, and I said, I need to include grapefruit in my diet. And here's Micro C with grapefruit extract in there. So somehow the universe was telling me I needed grapefruit, right? So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Caesar, I know you've been following Abraham Hicks as well, the queen of law of attraction. If you want to speak about it, thank you.
Well, a lot of things I've been doing lately is segment intentions, and I've been actually doing that with my food. trying to be a little more conscious. I think Kelly hit it right on the head. I came to understand that the food body is to be maintained. In our, once we reach 18, 19 years old, I think we're pretty much done growing. At least I was. And it took me another 30 years to realize that it wasn't something I needed to try to grow anymore, but it was just to maintain. And by paying attention to the body and how you feel, of course, determines on, your behavior and what type of energy you're going to bring in. Just depends on what you're doing. I'm a drummer, so I was really particular, my whole life growing up about what I ate before I, had a session with the band. It was important. Same thing as athletes probably do, before a game or so. So I like to try to eat things with high energy, proteins, things like that. But it's been a practice for sure, because personally, I'm by no means a nutritionist. And so it was just a lot of experimenting, if you will, to understand what foods made me feel well, and provided me the energy, and what foods made me feel lethargic. And so like I try to segment and tend with the food anymore, just like I do with anything else prior. Like when I get up in the morning and, I consider, what I'm going to eat, and depending on what I'm going to do that day. If I'm having a laid back day, a day off of work, then I'll eat not so much junk food, but I'll eat stuff that I would normally not eat. But if I'm going to work, I like to eat the fruits and the vegetables on the way in. I usually skip lunch and have a light dinner, and I've been pretty good. So yeah, I think Kelly hit it right on the head, actually. So
Thank you, Caesar. Eileen's been doing a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza research. So
Yeah.
want to speak about it, Eileen? How does our body respond to our thoughts and thinking?
Well, they do respond. That's for sure. It's mind-blowing really sometimes, but I wasn't necessarily going to bring up food, but then I remembered a story that I think I told Poonam a month or two ago. Actually, it's probably a few months ago now. That I hadn't been able to have dairy since I was like, I don't know, early college after high school. So a really long time. And I haven't had it for so many years, 20 plus years. And it's just always been my thing. Like I just don't intake anything with dairy. And anytime I would have something, I would know that it had dairy in it, because as soon as it would happen, I'd be sick. And so I would stay away from it. And it was over this summer, that my kids were asking for ice cream. And I was like, okay, I'll get you ice cream. I get them ice cream. And they're like, well, what about you? And they're like, oh, that's right. You'll get sick. Don't get any ice cream. And I said, well, sometimes maybe I would like to enjoy an ice cream, because usually I would get like a dairy-free option. And then I was like sitting in the car, and my daughter says, now you know, Mom, you just need to believe that you can do it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, you're absolutely right. We talk about this all the time, about our thoughts and the emotions that go behind your thoughts and your beliefs, and that it can be a positive thing or a negative thing. And so I got an ice cream, and I was like, I can totally do this. I won't, have any issues. And not a single problem, not at all. And even a couple of times since then, I've had something with dairy in it, whether it be ice cream or yogurt, or I've had different things over the few months, and I've not once had an issue, except the one time, I think I was telling you about this, the one time I just ate it. Like I just ate it without really thinking about it. So I just like ate whatever it was. And then I was like, oh gosh, I don't feel so good. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't like go in with that mindset that I'm going to eat this and not have any issue. And so it was like right back into that. But now I just if I ever do eat anything that has dairy in it, I always make sure that I'm very conscious about eating it and knowing. But that works for like anything. So, I mean, I've healed pains that I've had for 10 years or more by just being grateful for not having the pain, even though I can feel it at that moment and it's disappeared for good. But your brain can do the same thing, the opposite. So, like if you're predicting that you're going to have a bad day at work, this person's working with me and it's going to be off, then it's going to be awful. Whereas if you go into it with, a positive attitude and be grateful for whatever comes and that things will go well, then they'll go well. So it doesn't just work with food, but I do have experience with the food end too.
Thank you, Eileen.
No problem.
And I feel if you were to go into the physics of what is your body is
Energy.
atoms and molecules that are vibrating.
Yeah.
Every atom, I mean, Eckhart says that you have to take LSD to realize how objects are moving actually are vibrational. Then you have the effect of it. But even this table every atom in this table is vibrating. So all the cells of your body are vibrating. And that is the key to presence practice on how to the physical body, the inner body, then your inner being, how to get all that in alignment so that you're one. And we may think that consciousness is like we may say my presence, your presence, Caesar's presence, or Kelly's presence. It's not anybody's presence. Consciousness is just there. Even this empty space is filled with consciousness. So if we think that I am separate from everything else, no, all this is connected to, it's like all connected. We are constantly vibrating, right? So your thought is electromagnetic frequency, your emotion is electromagnetic frequency. So how can your thought not breathe into this body? Your body image is being created by your thoughts. What is your body is your thoughts. So if you want a better body, then it's in your thoughts. You're creating your body. So that's how important it is on why Eckhart says surrender or be in a state, the three modalities of awakened doing, surrender, be in joy or enthusiasm, right? Until we are feeling joy and enthusiasm, this body cannot be joyful. Like Louise discovered her joy. I'm going to look up the next question because it was there on, I put it on my personal notes.
Yeah, quantum physics is a very interesting study, for sure. Definitely very interesting, scientific. I've enjoyed quite for the last year and a half reading a lot of information about that. But it's hard to understand, I think, mentally sometimes. But it's very interesting.
That's why both Dr. Deepak Chopra and Eckhart says, right, consciousness is non-local. It's not actually in our body. So the question was from Tiara. Tiara, if you'll remember, was asking about her teenage, like a Zen koan. If you'll remember, she was asking about nutrition about her teenage kids, right? how to correct her teenage kids from eating junk food. But she had asked a second question, which we missed last week, so I'm going to pose it here. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about how emotions are contagious. That's why I used Betty's question to take off because they are tied together. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about how emotions are contagious. So emotions are contagious, right? Louise?
Hi. Yeah, I think they definitely are, because even just now that I've been like so happy on this cleanse, I see that everybody around me is happy and excited about it, and they want to do it and they want to know more about it. So I do think that, if you walk into a room and you're just like, oh, then it brings the energy down and everybody feels it, even if they hadn't felt it before. And so we, like you said earlier, we are connected and we influence each other in ways that we probably don't even realize. But I think that's, one of the things for me, why it's so important for me to do this work, to stay grounded, is because I do want to influence, my 3 little ones that I'm raising. I want them to have like every opportunity. So, and I know that by me living that way, then it will influence them to live that way.
And you don't even know how many more humans you're going to touch. It's just not those three little ones, right? Since we're out
Right.
there,
And
you don't even know.
yeah, and it's true, you never realize it, and then suddenly I'll get an email from someone, and like recently I got an email from someone I didn't even know, and they happened to be scrolling through Facebook and they saw my book and they just bought it. Like they're not in any of my groups, anything. And she said it just really changed her life in a lot of ways, and she really was appreciative of all the resources that were in it so that she could go further into it. And it's like some total stranger that I didn't even know that was scrolling through Facebook. So we do
Amazing.
influence each other.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing them.
Mhm.
Kelly, did you want to talk about how are emotions contagious?
Sure. Well, this is basic quantum mechanics that we're really talking about here. Because the human body is basically a toroidal field, right? We have a sphere of energy around us. In Qigong, we have the central channel, which is the center of this toroidal field. And any energy that we generate, as in thoughts, intention, any emotional energy that we are carrying, is in this field. So when we actually are projecting outward, or even holding space and stillness inside and being very, very solid, it will affect those around us. And my understanding from the work that I've done is that the stronger your energy field gets, the bigger it gets, and the more people you affect. And that what happens is that particularly strong energy, emotional energy, will sort of have a chain lightning effect where it'll bounce through a crowd of people, or it'll move through a crowd of people. The stronger you are at being able to be still and be aligned with your heart, the more beneficial impact you will have on people. And Louise, loved your point of reference in terms of the space that you're in now with your diet and your detox, and how different you feel, and how it's just this natural sort of bubbling up of happiness and joy. Because when, again, the body is cleaner and it is not using so much energy to deal with the tension or to process food, it has more energy for itself, which brings out this basic level of joy in the body. And this is a natural state that anyone can experience simply through changing their diet, because the vibration of what you take in affects the vibration of what you put out. Simple math. So the EMF, or the electromagnetic field of the body, is usually about, well, if you stretch your arms out to the side, that's about as simple an understanding of where your energy field actually is on any given day in a general sense. When you meditate on a regular basis, or you have a practice of focus and building your stillness inside and building alignment with the heart, you will actually grow that space that your energy actually occupies, simply because the vibration gets higher and your energy literally grows. You just accumulate more and more energy, and it grows and it expands. I've had people comment, even just coming to my classes on Zoom, where they like, as soon as they connect to my online classes, like, oh, hey, oh, great, okay, I feel so much better now. It's like, cool. The process of practicing Qigong gives you an innate and very, very sensitive, refined awareness of where your energy actually is and the quality of the energy as it is connected to your physical reality. So this is why diet is so important for me. With Qigong, what we do is we work at opening up that central channel in the body by aligning the front channel on the front of the body and the back channel, which is basically the spine, and breathing properly, regulating and constantly balancing the body, so that you go from this to basically this consistently and consciously. And you take that practice and that baseline in Qigong, and you make that the foundation for having that space inside where you can then be conscious of your emotions, conscious of your feelings and what you are dealing with and why. And that will directly reflect outward. I know there are times when I was a teenager and angry, where I'd walk into a room and everyone's mood was changed like that. And there'd be all these arguments, and I get into an argument and get, out of balance, and just be like drama, monkey mind. And it's a very, very palpable, visceral experience. It's like walking into a room and, especially someone that you know for a long time, a family member or your best friend, and they're angry or they're sad, and you do not even have to say a word to them. And you can feel it like a physical thing, like a pressure on your chest or your head or whatever. It's that simple. That's something that everyone should be paying attention to as a point of reference for understanding the actual impact that their presence with themselves, their practice, their space that they're holding with themselves, actually how it affects everything around them.
Thank you, Kelly. I think that's why Eckhart says he does not listen to emotional music. And I feel the same way too. I listen to like his music for stillness or music for quiet the mind, right? But I wouldn't listen to dramatic music, like, where the drama is going on, like how they show on primetime TV.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No emotional music, no sadness, no, it's just quiet, something that raises the vibrational frequency. So thank you. The resonance of electromagnetic frequency, which is emotions, are a vibration. So yes, it is contagious. Caesar, you wanted to, thank you, Kelly. Caesar, you wanted to say something about contagious emotions.
Yeah, for sure. The energy in a room determines a lot of how, you can read somebody without even listening to them speak or just watching their actions, you can basically feel their energy. I like to learn a lot from animals. I spend a lot of time in wildlife with wildlife, and I seem to study them a lot. And it's it's all about the energy and how they portray themselves. And as far as when I walk into a room and there's 2 or 3 wild raccoons that I'm supposed to go in there and get out, all they're doing is reading my energy, and it's the same thing humans do. As far as the emotions go, just a simple smile at somebody will always bring a smile back to you. Yeah, I mean, I think them guys summed it up pretty well. Yeah, emotions are our guidance center, so to speak. Tells us where we're at consciously if you're paying attention enough to it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And back to this may be empty space, but we don't know out of the collective mind what thoughts and emotions are hanging in this empty, what looks to our eye as empty space, right? And are about to attach it to ourselves. So it's all here, right in front of us, right? Thank you for that, Caesar. Travis, you wanted to speak on emotions being contagious.
Sure. Well, I think just to kind of follow what you just said, Poonam, I think we're such visual creatures. We see something, we go, well, there it is. It's there. It's real. I think with something like music or sound is a great kind of way to step into. We go, well, I can't see it, but I can hear it, and I understand that that we know the science around it, that there's vibrational frequencies that are resonating and reverberating in the space, and so that's kind of a beginning of being aware of something that is absolutely invisible, but that it's there. And then with what Kelly and Cesar were saying, like with how you can walk into a room. I mean, say something horribly traumatic just happened in a room. There might not even be anybody in the room, but you could walk in and go, I don't like it in here. Because you can instantly feel there's a reverberation, there's a frequency. And so I think to think in terms of vibrational frequencies, of wavelengths, and then we can begin to have a deeper understanding as to the kind of rippling effect, far-reaching effect, because I think what we're talking about is something that is tremendously powerful, and I think it goes beyond just emotions. I think with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our behaviors, but even deeper than all those, perhaps, is our underlying state of being, that I don't know if it could exactly be called a thought or emotion or a behavior. It could even more subtle than any of those. And I think that that is something that is, I think that, that's why somebody can be in a deeply tuned in and enlightened state. They could be in the desert, they could be in a cave, they could be wherever, in a city or wherever, and be having a tremendously pronounced effect on all of humanity, regardless of whether or not anybody's even aware that it's happening. They might not even be, most wouldn't be. And so I think that, yes, whatever we're doing, it's contagious. I know when I was younger, I used to smoke cigarettes, and there was a part of me that it was a funny thing, because I'd be standing there outside smoking, and I'd go, gosh, I feel like a commercial for this behavior that I know is unhealthy, because my behavior is suggesting that you ought to do it. I'm making it look like a good idea because I chose to do it. And then somebody comes up and goes, hey, do you got an extra cigarette? And you go, oh, here you go, So countless examples of how what we do is contagious. And so it's really fun to look at the positive side of that, and how we can consciously move into fun and playful thoughts, fun and playful emotions. I think that thoughts and emotions are wonderful so long as we're not addicted to them. If we can pick them up and use them creatively, they're a blessing. And so what's trouble is when we can't get out of those thought loops. We can't get out of those emotional loops that's taking us places we don't want to go, and it feels as though it's more powerful than us. That's when it gets really hard. But I think that we can play. I think as a musician, that's one of the things I love to do, is create feelings that can sweep somebody off their feet, or make them feel empowered, or make them reflect on something and explore all these different things. And so it's a wonderful thing, very, very powerful creative tool that we all have, the contagion of our of everything that we do and omit. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you for that perspective as well. I think Abraham Hicks has a beautiful way of saying it. She calls it, humans are great harmonizers. Like, you have this, we have this aunt that's saying, you're not going to amount to anything. And then we have a cousin that says, oh, that's not really going to work out for you. You really don't need to pursue that music business, right? And we'll harmonize to that frequency, right? We'll really think, oh, I don't think I need to attempt that music. It's not going to work out for me. Isn't it like that? That you're listening to everybody, all your relatives and your family and their programming, their past conditioning, right? And not thinking anything different. So great example. Thank you.
Hey, may I add one thing?
Sure. Thank you.
I just don't know why I forgot this earlier, but an example that I actually use in class all the time is called the 100 monkey syndrome. It was actually witnessed and researched in primate biology. So the 100 monkey syndrome basically was discovered in, I think it was French Guiana in South America. There was an observation post, conservation post, a bunch of biologists monitoring this troop of monkeys. And one day, one of the biologists, one of the scientists, researchers observed one of the monkeys washing the corn that they would put out for the monkeys. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. They made a note of it because they'd never seen a monkey do that before. And over the next 2 or 3 weeks, more and more monkeys started to wash their food, which they'd never ever seen in this group of primates before, not in any recorded biodiversity research. And suddenly they started getting reports from other groups in the area of their primate groups starting to wash their food. And they're like, oh, wait, so like this is suddenly spread, like what happened? But they're over there in that valley and there's no communication between these two groups of monkeys. So how did this happen? And what they did is they tracked back, is when they started to hear these reports was around the time when the size of the group of monkeys that were washing their food had reached 100 monkeys. And the amazing thing is, almost at a simultaneous moment, when they started getting reports from other research groups around them in South America, they got a report from groups in Africa where monkeys had literally started washing their food all the way across, suddenly, spontaneously, never ever recorded before, But in Africa, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, there were groups of monkeys washing their food. And the biology researchers realized that the group consciousness threshold had been 100 monkeys. Once 100 monkeys had started washing their foods, then all these other groups of primates started to wash their food as well. So that's an extra 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for that. The harmonizing of consciousness, somehow harmonizing through different forms.
Global awakening, I think that's how that's all going to play out, I think.
All of us out there in this group, all of us here in this panel are exemplifying that. So such an honor and a privilege, very humbling. Aline, did you want to talk about emotions being contagious? You live with 2 little ones, so.
Yes. It's actually very shortly after I started my meditation journey and the work with Eckhart Tolle that I realized that a lot of the struggles that my son had were as a result of him being able to feel and experience the energy of anybody that's in his presence. And it's not just like within a certain amount of feet, it's just really within the whole building that he's in. And so I remember, this is probably a year ago now, almost a year ago. I remember sending a Facebook message to Poonam because I was like, oh my gosh, the most bizarre thing happened today at school. Because I thought it was me, but it wasn't me, it was him. I am a teacher and my son was going to school at the same school that I taught at. So we weren't in the same wing of the school building, but we were in the same building, just not near each other. I had had a great morning, my first like 3 classes of school, and all of a sudden the energy changed. It like completely shifted in the middle of teaching a lesson. It was like, it was fantastic. And all of a sudden it was chaos. It was chaos everywhere. Like the kids were fine. And all of a sudden, like everybody was having issues. I was having issues. All of this stuff was happening and going wrong. And I was like, I don't understand. Like what happened? It was fine a moment ago. And then I got a phone call from an administrator that my son was freaking out, like in another room of another part of the building. Something that, not like him. And I was like, what? And then like it all like kind of pieced together as the afternoon went on. So there was like an issue in his class with someone else. And that energy of what was going on with them, like he fed off of that. And he was just very out of sorts and just a very not a good energy. And it literally just traveled through the space of the building. And it was like, it didn't matter that we were all doing fantastic. It just all crumbled into pieces. And so it was like one of the first experiences I had, like conscious experiences with energy, because it's very contagious. And I try and explain to people like it works both ways. Positive energy is contagious as well. I don't really like using the words positive and negative, but I think people will know what I mean. Because you can change it. So even if it's, low energy or negative energy, you can change the energy. which I've brought up a couple of times. You can change the energy of a space. Sometimes it takes more effort than other times, but it's definitely true. And it's contagious, if that's even the right word. But
Thank you, Eileen. That was beautiful. Do we have any questions? We didn't get any questions, right?
no, we have a lot of people viewing, but no questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Emotions being contagious. So one of the things that, when we speak colloquially, we say opposites attract. But as far as electromagnetic frequency is concerned, it's not so much as opposites attract. It's actually negative attracts negative. So like I always say, right, if you think we are the what I call low frequency, right? So discomfort, depression, sadness, frustration, irritation. So give your, that's why Eckhart's, and we've talked about it in so many Facebook Live, that give your body attention, give your inner body, inhabit your body so that you can know these low frequencies, right? Am I irritated? Am I feeling something in my body that is an irritation? Or annoyance or anger, soon enough that irritation and the slight annoyance or irritation, it'll join in with the collective and look at how much negativity exists in the news, in our society. And most of us here live in North America, in the United States, and there is a lot of negativity and a lot of divisiveness right now in the collective consciousness, right? So if you take the collective consciousness, so now if we are vibrating at the low frequency, right, then we are going to get pulled down. We'll go further down into, now we felt some kind of irritation, then that irritation will turn into annoyance, it'll turn into rage. From rage, it'll turn into fear. From fear, it'll turn into depression. Oh, this world is going to blow apart. And that's what the collective consciousness is feeding into, right? What Eckhart says, pain bodies creating other pain messaging that is for pain bodies, right? Look at the news. I remember watching Sandy Hook shootings on CNN, and all day long they showed the street where the gunner may have driven up the street all day long, and repeat the story over and over again of how 6-year-old children were shot, right? And I watched it for 2-3 hours. I was like, maybe I'll get some real news out of this. Is there something different? From then on, I said, I'm never going to watch news ever again. It's just a waste. They're just feeding into our pain body, right? And we love it. We love watching celebrities fall, right? Anything happening to the president, anything happening to any world leader, anything happening to any of the celebrities, we are like, wow, yay. Because in that instance, we are feeling better than them. We brought them down the pedestal. Oh, they're worse than us. And so the ego has come in, right? So yes, it is contagious. And be very, very careful about these bubbles. What Eckhart says, right? They're like bubbles. Thought formations are like bubbles, and they will attach itself to us, and then one frequency after another frequency after one frequency. Since we don't have any questions and it's been an hour, I'll quickly wrap it up with something that has happened this past week continuously with in different formats, this limiting belief. So I call it a limiting belief because it plays into, I think I brought it up during the group meditation, and I'll give you an example. Like I was reading this book, The Nature of Personal Reality, and in there he talks about the limiting belief of overweight women. And he says overweight women can be overweight because maybe they were pushed around, right? So you gain weight not to be pushed around, right? You want to be firm. That's one limiting belief. But then he ends it, and that caught my attention, was the greatest reason why people don't lose weight is because of guilt. So I want y'all to speak on guilt as a limiting belief. And what we're going to do from now on is tear down each and every, and if y'all can think when you come back, homework for everybody on the panel, if y'all can think of a limiting belief that y'all overcame, we can discuss it. Please bring it up on the panel next week, and then we can discuss it. But I want guilt to be discussed as, so we call it limiting because as Eckhart says, right, when the shutters are closed, the light cannot shine through. So the belief becomes our prison. We are so trapped in that, we are in that box that we cannot think beyond it, right? We are not allowing consciousness to flow through. We are trapped in that belief and are co-creating that type of situation over and over again. In this case, an overweight, like what Seth says, is this human being being overweight, right? And he said it even applies to people that have bulimia and anorexia. So it works either way. The guilt works in that direction when you're underweight, and it works in this direction when you're overweight, right? But guilt is the main factor. So Travis, since you smiled, as though you understood this limiting belief called guilt, go ahead, sir.
Oh, goodness. Well, I can tell you what comes to mind for me isn't a limiting belief that I've overcome, but a limiting belief that in talking about this and looking at this, I feel like I'm still kind of grappling with. It's amazing. I was always overweight as a kid. And it wasn't until, I'm 41 now, and it was probably in my late 20s that I got really motivated and lost over 40 pounds or something like that. But ever since then, I've watched myself struggle and kind of go back and forth with my weight. And it's amazing sometimes what I do, the kind of energy I put into my health and fitness and physique, and I still have this bit of kind of flab and stuff around my midsection that no matter what I do so far has not gone away. And I definitely can't help but to, whether or not it's healthy or not, or how true it is or isn't, I don't know. But I kind of equate it to whatever I have going on inside of who I am, or my sense of who I am, that I have yet to work through it. And so it's kind of for me to be able to get through those mental, emotional patterns and free myself of those kind of loops, those tape loops that oftentimes I'm not even aware are playing. That perhaps that it will be reflected to me in my attaining to the physical goals that I work very hard to. I mean, I enjoy doing it, but I put a lot of effort into achieving. And so to get to guilt, what for me, I look back at my childhood. I look at not getting a whole lot of attention and guidance from my parents, getting moved all around, all these kinds of things, and how somehow all of that added up to some sort of idea about who I am, where my sense of worth is in question. I'm not good enough as I am, and I think, this is crazy to say, I think there may be some part of me that feels guilty about my own existence. It's funny to say this online on a panel, having not had this realization before this moment, but and so as if something about my existing and taking up space here is somehow not a celebration or contribution, but somehow problematic in some way. And upon looking at it, it seems ludicrous. It seems ridiculous. But I think there is some, and I'm still working that out. And for me, I'll close on this, that what I feel like is helping me lately is not feeding into the corresponding behavior that goes along with those negative or limiting mental emotional patterns, which for me, I can easily sit and eat 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's in a sitting happily and feel great afterwards. I just go, that was delicious. Yeah. And so, but lately I've had enough things that have come into my life. I feel so grateful, that matter to me so much, that I have there's, I don't know, I have a meaning and a purpose and love guiding what I'm doing. It feels like it's just what I need to throw me over the edge to really make those changes, of those things that I've just been right at the brink of changing. I bump up against it all the time, but it's just so scary to shed my old self and move up and on into the new, into the light. And so I feel like by not feeding into it, it's slowly loosening, and it's becoming a little lighter and a little thinner. That the grip of those mental emotional patterns. And so thanks, that was very cathartic. I hope that was as helpful for others as it was for me.
I don't know how I got muted, but thank you for sharing. I think Caesar used the term segment in 10. What helps is to segment in 10. Like, you're having a short segment, like you're about to start the group meditation yesterday. Then you say, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to enjoy this. And it does transpire that we enjoy it, right? Like, I'd never know on Tuesdays if I'm going to be able to make it to your meditation, right? Because how exhausted I am on Tuesday by 8:30 at night, which is the case with Eileen as well, because it's 9:30 at night for East Coast, right? So, but yesterday, somehow I knew even last week that I would be able to make it to your Tuesday. I was like, this Tuesday, I'm going to be able to make it. And sure enough, it so worked out that I did my meditation, and within 15-20 minutes, I was like, it's 8:30, let me go just sit with Travis as well and the group, whoever is there. And it did work out. So segment in 10, right? It's a beautiful way of already using our thought to form our reality. And then, the part to it is to reaffirm that we co-created that reality. And then it firms up. Then we are going to create another reality, right? The next segment. So that's how the conscious manifestation or law of attraction works. And then you'll be able to manifest bigger and bigger things because you've gotten into the practice of segment intending so well, right? The art of allow whatever it is. I mean, you may segment intend and it may not be good also. And if it is not good, then allowing what is to be as it is, uncompromising yes, right? And you enjoy the segment. Thank you, Travis, for that example. Whatever you may think about what you are, Travis, and how it is for you, we are honored that you are here with us. And we are thankful that your parents gave birth to you, and whatever family and whatever challenges you've gone through, you've been a blessing to the group. People have gotten attached to you. I see Gracie and Lakshmi and Samar attending all of your. I mean, Eileen and I do too. We would love to, if it was convenient, to be there all the time. But see what you've attracted, right? It's the preciousness of that soul. I mean, look at Eckhart. He's not a very good-looking human being. He's not an attractive. Even Esther Hicks, right? Abraham Hicks is not a very good, beautiful woman. But you get attracted to that personality. There's something about how they speak and what they speak, that consciousness flowing through them. You just want to be with that person, and it's okay what it may be, right? And you honor it. So thank you. We thank them. We are grateful to them for not saying, okay, I'm going to abort, like how many other millions of kids get aborted, that I'm going to abort this baby. We're grateful your mom took the trouble to give birth to you. So thank you. It's meaningful for us, Travis.
Well, it's funny because I mean, I think part of why it's so easy for me to admit to guilt around existing is because there's of course there's so much of me that is beyond words or description, utterly ecstatic and grateful upon my existence, that moment to moment every day. And it's been a wonderful thing to actually see just in the past few years. I didn't realize how it's been reflected back to me a lot, where people express to me this, my peaceful aura, or my vibe, or joy, and all these things that I never realized just quite how palpable it can, how much it touched others. So, I'm usually pretty easy and ready to be open about, all of everything in my life. I like sharing the journey. I like sharing the process because I know that it's an invitation for others to do the same. So, I just don't want anyone to get the impression that I'm down on myself or anything, because I'm criminally ecstatic. It most of the a lot of the time. So I'm grateful to report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Louise, you want to talk about guilt as a limiting belief and how it works?
Well, I've had, throughout the years, there's a lot of guilt for a lot of things that I've done in my past. And I think probably when I started really, going like deep and really working through things, I realized that, the past is gone. on. And me going over the same thing over and over and over again was just creating more pain. And so I feel like sometimes guilt still will creep in about certain things, and I can't think offhand exactly, give an example, but I know that it does creep in from time to time. And it's just, again, like allowing, a lot of times I'll say, okay, where is this feeling coming from? And I just let myself feel it until it just dissolves, because I don't want to ignore it and for then it to come back and bite me later. And so my thing is to, every time I feel something that's uncomfortable or something that's like guilt, is to just kind of analyze it, like, where is it coming from? How does it make me feel? What can I do, and mainly it's just being still and in silence to allow that feeling to work through, and to not keep going over and over and rehashing things that I can't do anything about anyway. And I do think that a lot of times I know for myself, I was brought up, to feel guilty about everything. Like I even can hear my father saying that, when I was growing up, you should feel guilty about that. You should feel bad about that. Um, you shouldn't, for everything. It was just constant. Like, don't you have common sense? And so a lot of that is ingrained in us. And so it's again like reworking through things and allowing and letting go. But I think the key, and it's always my same answer, is the more you practice being in the now and practice quieting the mind, these things just kind of fall off and go away.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise. I think Eckhart says guilt, shame, and blame are three aspects of the ego, where the ego, like the strategy of the ego is to strengthen itself, because that identity of being, I'm guilty of this action, or I'm shameful of this action, or I blame, either I blame myself, or the ego is always not taking responsibility. We started this whole session by saying we are co-creating our reality. So take responsibility, even if something is going wrong. Look within ourselves. What is the vibrational frequency in me that co-created this challenging present moment, right? Because we co-created it. We create our reality. There's no other way. Everybody has to absorb this and know this as though they know their innermost darkest secrets. They need to know that I co-create my present moment, and my future moment is going to be created by how I act in this present moment. If I act with loving kindness and compassion, then my future moment is also going to be loving and kind. So guilt, shame, and blame, drop it like a hot coal, he says in The Power of Now, right? So grow in presence power to the extent that you can drop it. Because you can, if I tell anybody that's walking on the street, hey, if you feel guilt, just drop it, they're not going to be able to, right? They're going to say, what do you mean? And my identity, who I am is that guilty person. My identity is tied in, who I am is that I'm such a huge, horrible person. I was bad. I did bad things in my life. That is who I am. And then you say, drop it? How do I drop it? But that is the conditioned pattern of human beings for thousands of years that Eckhart is saying, look at your conditioning, look at your pattern. From presence, look at your pattern. That's what he's saying. Thank you, Louise, for that. So Louise seems to be growing in that presence power where she's able to see that guilt and drop it. At some point in time, you get to the point where no longer are you living even in the past 1 second chronological second of a moment. So you're not even going to feel any guilt because guilt is of the past, right? So if you were not living in the past, then you're not guilty anymore. Nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness. Neither could we, nor could the other. So there's nothing to be guilty about. Eileen, do you want to say anything about guilt as a limiting belief?
It's one that I've worked on, but still need to more. For me, it usually is around my role as a mother. Like, and so like I've let a lot of that go already over the last couple of months. But there are times even today where like I feel like I should be doing more with them, or that I work too much, or that I should be. But I know that those thoughts just attract more of it. It's just so ingrained in me that or habitual, like it's a habit difficult to break, I guess. But that's all I watch.
Does it have anything to do with how you felt about your mother?
I think parts of it, maybe. I'm gonna have to come back to that. Probably. I gotta think more on that. It's funny because I'm nothing like her, which means you're probably right. Yes.
That, you know, so I think I was telling somebody else in group meditation that this was on the father's side. If we have a judgment about a parent, like we said, our father abandoned us or mother abandoned us, right? Then what we are going to do is hold that limiting belief, right? That becomes a limiting belief in this is not how mothers should be. And now we are trying to be the better mother. And so constantly, you know, Eckhart has this talk called The Source of All Trust. And in there, he talks about we make the rigidity of our expectation. It's an insane way to live. Now our expectation is I'm going to be the topmost mother of this. I'm going to be the best father or the best mother in this whole world, right? So our expectation of our motherhood or fatherhood is way, way, way there. But we are a normal mother. You know, this is trial and error, right? Who taught us how to be mothers? So we're going to do mothering as we would. So accept what is. It's okay to be the mother that you are. You don't have to be the top notch.
Yeah, I'm definitely not.
So dropping the limiting belief of how a mother she would be would make you not compare yourself to motherhood.
It's funny because like two things came up as you're talking. Is like I mean, I know I'm nothing like my biological mother, not at all. But my father, who took me, who, you know, I was you know, abandoned to or whatever. I am like him to a T. And it's funny because I didn't really think too much of it until you asked that, because like I pride myself on being a hard worker and being on time and getting my work done and making sure that I'm not late and that, you know, deadlines are met and all of this stuff. And that's my father. Like that's what was, and I've always like looked up to him and been grateful for him and thankful for him, and the fact that, you know, he was a great, you know, dad. And then when you were asking like what does that make you think about that abandonment, I'm like, well, I'm doing the thing, the overworking and all of that. Like I'm doing the thing that he did. And then I'm judging myself as a mom, like that I'm not a good mom because I'm doing that. But I grew up thinking he was, you know, a good father, even though that's what he did. So it's interesting as I'm sitting here, it's all kind of like going through my head.
And you know, he may be overdoing it because he may be making up for that you don't have a mother. So let me be the best father. That's how our thinking mind, how insane is our thinking mind?
I know.
It's like crazy.
Yep.
It's like totally out of whack. Like he may be doing that, right? That he's overcompensating because you're a motherless child, or
Mhm.
that I need to do more for my kids because now their mother has given them to me,
Mhm.
right? Oh, I need to be the best father there is. That means 17 hours of work. But if you're doing 17 hours of work, which Caesar is going to be the next to be talking about 17 hours of work, since he wrote about it on the Facebook post, and he's going to be exemplary in his 17 hours of work, what happens to a man? And you cannot give presents. The presence
what-
is missing.
Yep.
The presence from that human being is missing in 17 hours of work.
And that's where my guilt comes from, because I feel like they're not getting the best of me. So maybe I'm an okay mom or a good mom or whatever, but they're definitely not getting who they could or should be getting with as much work as I'm doing. It's just, yeah. Thank you.
And it's not so much as they're not getting, I would not use the word they're not getting the mom. They're getting the best mom that they could ever have, is the statement that you need to make. Just balance out your work. See if you can reduce your workload and all your activities during the week, reduce them so that, see what you can eliminate, right? In your daily activities. And even as simple as cooking. Do you have to cook 3 meals a day? Or can you cook just one meal or cook once in a day and eat it for 2 or 3 days? They cook 2 or 3 things in one day on a Sunday and eat it for 2 or 3 days, kind of thing. Something simple like that. Or how can you simplify, pre-plan your meals? There are lots of ways. We talk about it.
Thank you.
Caesar, 17-hour days, sir. And guilt as a limiting belief. Go ahead.
Well, I found that it was affecting everything I did once I got home. There was just no quality to anything that I did because I was so just exhausted. And here I am again today. I woke up at 4:30 this morning and was out the door by 5 and got home at 6 and was able to sneak in an hour nap before this started. So I'm grateful for that hour nap, but and it's something I keep saying I'm going to stop doing because it does affect everything that I do. It's not that there's no presence in what I do once I get home, but the quality of which I do everything is just not vibrant as it was, a couple months ago when work was slower. And I keep saying I'm going to adjust my schedule not to let that happen anymore. and guilt is a driving force right now because it's physically taking its toll on me, as well as mentally, I believe. And yeah, it's just not the same. It takes away, I don't know, just everything good. I mean, there's no quality to, I'm just so dead and tired by the time I get home. It's like I want to do everything that I would normally do. I do a little rehabbing with wildlife. So, and that cannot go without my attention ever. So it's just a driving force to, there they go again. Yeah, the guilt has not really been a factor, but now it's showing up in the things that I'm doing elsewhere outside of work. Work seems to be fine when I'm there, and then when I get home, it's just I just want to sleep, and I tend to my chores, and it doesn't happen that way anymore. So I'm going to adjust my schedule here, hopefully in the next week, because we are coming up to the end of the season. So I do right now it's exterior construction for us, and we've got about another week or two to get all the clients wrapped up, and we got behind for a while, and it's just taking its toll on probably everybody, and everybody's pushing for the hours, and here they're getting them, and I'm dying inside. But yeah, it'll be over soon.
And I
It's tough.
feel, thank you, Caesar.
Thank you.
When we say guilt, what is that guilt, right? So the guilt is our inner beingness. If we were aligned with our inner beingness, then our inner beingness would be emanating loving kindness, compassion, empathy, gratitude, right? Any deviation from that inner beingness, that's why we talk about right here at the lower frequencies of vibration. This is our inner being. Come into alignment with your inner being. Abraham Hicks, we have been talking about her a lot. There are some terms that Abraham Hicks uses that are very colloquial, but they are very understanding. She calls it calibration. Get into calibration with your inner being, right? When you're calibrated with your inner being, everything you do, you're going to know it is sacred. It's consecrated action. Whether you're drinking a glass of, just like Kelly was saying in the beginning, if you're drinking a bottle of water, you're doing it with consecrated action. I'm making celery juice in the morning. I'm squeezing the celery because I use the Vitamix. I have to squeeze the celery the juice out of the celery through the strainer with using my hands, and it's consecrated action. I feel the pressure from my fingers on the celery, and I'm like, it's almost like blessing the celery, right? And now I'm going to ingest it, like I'm going to drink that. So I'm like consecrating the celery as I'm making the juice. So that kind of quality, that kind of total and complete presence, that kind of concentration and focus. So what she says is be tuned in, tapped in, turned on. What does that mean? What does Eckhart mean by inner beingness, alignment with inner beingness? It is exactly that. There will not be any guilt whatsoever if every action is done aligned with our inner beingness. The guilt arises because there's separation. We're doing something that our inner being would never work 17 hours a day, because law of least effort says everything happens. I achieve maximal effect with minimal effort. It should be effortless. Our external manifestation should be effortless. It shouldn't be this efforting of 17 hours, both Eileen and Caesar. So if you're efforting, that means that is not what we should be doing. So the person that started this beautiful conversation, Kelly, let's wrap it up with guilt as the, and we'll end. The moment you end is I'm going to hit the end
Okay,
of this meeting. Go ahead.
fair enough. First, one thing, actually, if I could speak to what Eileen said. One of the things that's really, really helped me with the whole concept of guilt, the illusion of guilt, which is a fear control mechanism, is looking at things from a soul contract perspective. And one of the things that I firmly believe in is that everybody has a soul contract, especially parents and children. And that, Eileen, your kids, and Louise, the little ones that you're taking care of as well, have, at a soul level, agreed to be with you and to embody with you and to learn from the experience of everything that you are going through as they grow and develop themselves. So while there is all this wondering about, am I doing the right thing? Am I being a good parent? I mean, suddenly finding myself with a whole bunch of kids in my life, that's been something that has gone through my awareness, and that I'm not a parent. These are not people that I'm actually tied to by blood, but I also do recognize the fact that it is an absolute privilege to be able to share space with these young people and to be able to support and facilitate their space alongside my own as I share space with them. So I look at things from a soul contract perspective. And if I catch my monkey mind sort of chattering away about analyzing and comparing things and trying to, hook that guilt trip thing going along off in the left field, I step back and I look at things from that soul contract perspective, where in one sense, everything is as it should be. Everything is the only way it could be because of all of the choices that have brought us here to this moment, plain and simple. That's the simplest math, or the simplest way to put it. One personal experience of my own understanding and confronting my own sense of guilt was when I decided that I needed to get divorced, and that the person that I was with was not the person that was for me, that fit or anything, and that we'd really grown apart and become different people. And the guilt that came up for me in that moment was the guilt of wanting something different than the norm, wanting something different than what my family has given forth as sort of the family construct, or the, white picket fences, nuclear family construct, which virtually all of my family is doing. And I have never in my life ever actually felt inclined to have kids or have that whole nuclear family thing. And there's a lot of guilt that I faced in deciding to get divorced and separated, because I realized what I was really doing was stepping out of the family compact and the family paradigm of, this is the way things are. And this is how you are valued. And this is how you are of value to us. And this is how you fit. And this is how we will accept you. So that was one of the biggest things that I confronted when I got divorced and did the whole separation, and stepped out of that old space of trying to compare myself to this ideal of reality that was, for me, utterly unattainable because it was literally not in me. I view guilt as a control mechanism of fear, and something that our monkey mind ego likes to use to trick us into the game of analyzing and comparing us to other people, ourselves to other people, ourselves to things outside of ourselves that have literally got nothing to do with us. And to not understand that what we're doing is, when we are comparing ourselves and guilting ourselves, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that, we are not looking at the fact that things have already happened, Louise, like what you said about, how things are in the past. You cannot go back to the past, but there is all this weight of emotional energy that is there, and that gets stuck if we do not actually look at it. And this kind of tension in our minds can literally create, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how emotions are contagious and how our body actually responds to our thought process and the energy that we put into our awareness. And this is something that I talk about and teach in Qigong, in my Qigong classes. This is where the E, spelled Y-I, the power of the intention, the power of our awareness, and where we actually place our awareness, what we put emphasis on, what we put energy into, really does affect the body. And will cause the body to be sick, to be tense, to generate all of these stories to keep the loop going. So when I got divorced and I made that huge step, I literally had every concept of my personal identity utterly shattered. And I had to deal with guilt of what I had done to myself, as well as the guilt of, oh my God, what have I done? And process and integrate this huge shift in my personal perception that I literally felt relief, but I felt a profound sense of grief and sorrow for what I had done, and let myself choose, even though I felt inside of me that it did not fit. And a lot of grief came up from that, and I had to mourn my own choice to believe in that story and not get hooked into the guilt of letting myself feel how much I wanted something different, or not feeling guilty for being so incredibly relieved and ecstatic and joyful that I'd finally done it. So that was, for me, that was a huge moment of understanding multiple aspects of grief and how they interplay all at the same time, and how the mind could also get confused and hooked into one kind of grief and ignore another kind of grief without coming into alignment with myself and listening and just stepping back. And there's so many different types of emotions and guilt that came up about, oh, well, you know, no one's going to like you anymore. You don't have any friends because like they're all married and they only really, you know, want to pay attention to you if you're married, or, you know, what are you going to do? Like go out and date, or like you're single now? Like what's that about? You know, we don't know how to do this anymore. Right. So there's all these things, all these stories that my monkey mind tried to like throw at me and get me to start worrying about and feel guilty that suddenly I had to like worry about all this stuff. And you know, it's a weird moment of juxtaposition when I pulled back into myself, and it kind of felt like I got super, super hot, and I felt like I suddenly had been, you know, hooked up to like live wires, and I was sort of like literally shaking. I literally could feel the dense energy being shook out of my system for a period of like 2 or 3 weeks. And, you know, very physical experience to sort of hold myself against all of this pressure from my monkey mind, to feel all this guilt and to feel all this worry and fear and all these things that I should be concerned about. So that's why I look at it as a control mechanism, where all that guilt that came up, my monkey mind tried to hook me into it to control me with fear again. So yeah, guilt's good learning experience all around.
And as Eckhart says, just drop the guilt like a hot piece of coal. Notice that the thought, it's just a thought. So the day that we can notice that all these emotions like guilt, shame, and blame are just thought formations, we have developed enough presence power, enough alignment with inner beingness to heal ourselves, to have more and more awareness that it's just a thought, drop it. Just a thought, drop it. And you should not feel any guilt, Kelly, because that event actually brought you to be more of like bloom into the highest expression of who you could be as a Qigong teacher. So that was the best thing you could have done. So there's no guilt.
I know.
There's no guilt
yeah.
about it at all.
Yeah.
Right? That is the most like completely joyful moment that you made that decision, take responsibility for it. Yes, I'm going to co-create a different future.
Yeah,
And look
well, yeah.
forward.
There's no guilt associated with that event at all.
So no more guilt. Right?
Right.
Okay, on that topic, we will revisit. Everybody do your homework. Everybody out there do your homework. Find all the limiting beliefs that y'all can think of. And next time we're going to talk more about limiting beliefs, because I think if we can knock down the limiting beliefs, then we will, you know what Eckhart says is it's all about resistance. The resistance is just an vibrational frequency of a limiting belief or a limiting emotion. So if we knock those down for all of you, maybe you will open up and more consciousness will flow into this group, into this panel. I am like deeply humbled, an honor and a privilege to have all of you out there, all of you here on this panel. Have a wonderful evening. Many blessings. Good night.